Welcome to the section, How Computers Are Learning to Be Creative. We're Group 4. What's deep learning? Machine intelligence makes computers and devices able to do some of the things that brains do. Machine perception is the capability of a computer system to interpret data in a manner that is similar to the way humans use their senses to relate to the world around them. Santiago Ramón y Cajal, a Spanish neuroanatomist, used microscopy and special stains that could selectively fill in or render in very high contrast the individual cells in the brain, in order to start to understand their morphologies. This is the cortex that processes imagery that comes from the eye. And for them, this looked like a circuit diagram. Warren McCulloch and Walter Pitts turned Ramón y Cajal's drawing of visual cortex into a circuit diagram. Although the circuit diagram that are not quite right, but this basic idea that visual cortex works like a series of computational elements that pass information one to the next in a cascade is essentially correct. How computers learn. So the pixels you can think about as a first layer of neurons, and that's how it works in the eye. That's the neurons in the retina. And those feed forward into one layer after another layer of neurons, all connected by synapses of different weights. The behavior of this network is characterized by the strengths of all of those synapses. Those characterize the computational properties of this network. At the end of all, you have a neuron or a small group of neurons that light up, saying, "Bird." The first step towards this goal is to teach a computer to see objects. In its simplest terms, imagine this teaching process as showing the computers some training images of a particular object, let's say cats, and designing a model that learns from these training images. How hard can this be? A cat is just a collection of shapes and colors, and this is what we did in the early days of object modeling. We'd tell the computer algorithm in a mathematical language that a cat has round face, chubby body, pointy ears, and long tail, and that looked all fine. But what about this cat? It's all curled up. Now you have to add another shape and viewpoint to the object model. But what if cats are hidden? Now you get the point. Even something as simple as a household pet can present an infinite number of variations to the object model, and that's just one object. No one tells a child how to see, especially in the early years. They learn this through real-world experiences and examples. If you consider a child's eyes as a pair of biological cameras, they take one picture about every 200 milliseconds, the average time an eye movement is made. So by age 3, a child would have seen hundreds of millions of pictures of the real world. My insight was to give the algorithms the kind of training data that a child was given through experiences in both quantity and quality. In hindsight, this idea of using big data to train computer algorithms, just like the brain consists of billions of highly connected neurons, a basic operating unit in a neural network is a neuron-like node. It takes input from other nodes and sends output to others. Moreover, these hundreds of thousands or even millions of nodes are organized in hierarchical layers, also similar to the brain. In a typical neural network we use to train our object recognition model, it has 24 million nodes, 140 million parameters and 15 billion connections. That's an enormous model. And this is a computer telling us this picture contains a cat and where the cat is. This is the basic structure of the neural network. Each layer has a lot of neurons. The output of last layer is the input of next layer, and ultimately we will get a final output. Now we're diving into these three things. The inputs are variables, A, and the synapses in the neural network are variables, B, and the output, Y. Pixels are fed into the first layer of neurons. And that's how it works in the eye, the neurons in the retina. And those feed forward into one layer after another layer of neurons, all connected by synapses of different weights. The behavior of this network is characterized by the signal of all of those synapses. Those characterize the computational properties of this network. And at the end of the day, you have a neuron or a small group of neurons that light up, saying, "Bear." So let's pretend that this is just a simple formula, A times B equals Y. There is something in scare quotes because what's really going on there, of course, is a very complicated series of mathematical operations. How about this one? We know exactly how to do that. 50 equals 10 multiplied by B. We divide by 10 and we're done. The problem is with this operator. So, division, we've used division because it's the inverse to multiplication, but as I've just said, the multiplication is a bit of a lie here. This is a very complicated, non-linear operation. It has no inverse. So we have to figure out a way to solve the equation without a division operator. And the way to do that is fairly straightforward. You just say, let's play a little algebra trick, and move the 6 over to the right-hand side of the equation. Now, we're still using multiplication. And that's 0. Let's think about it as an error. In other words, if we've solved for B the right way, then the error will be 0. And if we haven't gotten it quite right, the error will be greater than 0. So now we can just take guesses to minimize the error, and that's the sort of thing computers are very good at. So you've taken an initial guess, what if B equals 0? Well, then the error is 50. What if B equals 2? The error is 30. And then the computer can sort of play Marco Polo, and drive down the error close to 0. As it does that, it's getting successive approximations to B. Typically, it never quite gets there, but after about a dozen steps, we're up to B equals 4.999, which is close enough. And this is the learning process. Next, we're going to look at the situation if B and Y is known. Can the computer calculate A with the neural network? We use the previous example. We have a network which can distinguish animals. When we assign the output as bird, the network then train backward, finally output an image of bird. Computer can imagine what a bird would look like. And this is how we said that the neural network can learn to be creative. The previous examples use the same kind of objects to establish networks. As we all know, this example is just a typical neural network application. But can the functions go beyond what it can do now? First, we have a known dataset, A, and known result, Y, to establish B. Then, we use the dataset C as a target to input B. The network identify dataset C and output the result. First, neural network was our well-trained and established by animals and buildings data. But we input a sky image. The result that get from the networks is a collection of animals and buildings in the sky image. Now, replace the training data with facial data set. The animals and buildings coordinates of the last output image are possibly different from the previous image. Even size or quantity can be totally different. Perception and creativity are connected. The sensation of completed neural network module differs from reaction and association of human intuition. It can use more different training materials and models to create various outcomes, making users an artist or poet. In previous section, we know that Google has invented a process that could help us to understand what the neural network is thinking. And they named it as Inceptionism, which comes from Christopher Nolan's movie, Inception. This Inceptionism process was first published on Google Researcher site on June in 2015, and they've released the source code on July. So if anybody is interested in this program, he or she could access the code on GitHub. Here we listed several repositories for different users, including the original one by Google, which use Caffe. The TensorFlow implementation and the PyTorch implementation are also included. In the following part we'll show some interesting results which we retrieved from the second one. First we should give it an image to make it start thinking. In this example we select this eagle's photo as input. Also, the pre-trained database will affect the output result a lot. And we use the most common one, a model pre-trained on the ImageNet, which is a database based on millions of very different photos, and is mostly related to the natural. So it will not be surprised to find many other animals in the output. We can also alter some parameter to make the effect on the photo stronger. In this example we make the imagination part stronger. Except for the stone one the left-hand side, most objects on the output photo are not easily to align with the original one. The weird color and abnormal borders make it look like a fauvism art. This would be the part people named as the neuron's creativity. For the last part we'll use this photo as input. The management building is the place where every of us work in, and familiar with. So before we show the result, you could pause this video, inspect this image, and thinking, beside this old-style building in the meadow, what could you find, or what could you image? We force the neural network to inspect the whole image, then use the imagination. Then we got the weeding output again. Besides the dogs on the ramp, the birds in the sky. The most interesting thing would be the management building. This old Taiwanese-style building transformed into Middle East-styled castle. This habitual place becomes the magical place to visit. Since the pre-trained database affects the output a lot, if one use a model trained on the photos of scenery or landmarks, we could get the output like this, which is more like to normal painting. And there's also some business usage of this dreaming process. Here is a output image, and it will be more comfortable for most of us. In the closing, share this sentence from the Michelangelo for everyone. Every block of stone has a statue inside of it, and the job of the sculptor is to discover it. Thank you for watching this video.